Welcome to St Cyprian's Church online worship for Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. It's difficult to have any formal sense of worship, and perhaps for these 2 days the best way of worship is simply to remember the events that happened around the time of the death of Christ. We know it all started with a meal with friends together to celebrate. And yet at that meal, there were already signs of cracks, already signs that someone was going to betray Jesus. Let me simply read the story. When the hour came, Jesus took his place at the table with the apostles. He said to them, "I have wanted so much to eat this Passover meal with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will never eat it until it is given its full meaning in the kingdom of God." Then Jesus took a cup, gave thanks to God and said, "Take this and share it among yourselves. I'll tell you that from now on I will not drink this wine until the kingdom of God comes." Then he took a piece of bread, gave thanks to God, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in memory of me." In the same way, he gave them the cup after the supper, saying, "This cup is God's new covenant, sealed with my blood, which is poured out for you. But look, the one who betrays me is here at the table with me. The Son of Man will die as God has decided, but how terrible for that man who betrays him." After this event, they went out to the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives. But we'll read about that in a few moments after we've had some music. So after Jesus and the disciples had celebrated the Passover, they did go out to the Mount of Olives. It was a place where Jesus prayed. It was a place where Jesus felt alone. He prayed, but the others just slept. And it was perhaps the last place from where he could escape. He could have got away, done a runner, but chose to stay so that he went to the cross and was crucified. It's a moving event. This is how it's said in the Bible. Jesus left the city and went, as he usually did, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples went with him. When he arrived at the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." Then he went off from them about the distance of a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed. "Father," he said, "if you will, take this cup of suffering away from me. Not my will, however, but your will be done." An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. In great anguish he prayed even more fervently. His sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Rising from his prayer, he went back to the disciples and found them asleep, worn out by their grief. He said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you will not fall into temptation." For Jesus, this was the last moment of freedom. Let's have some more music and then we'll read the next part of the story. So they finished praying. They finished at the Garden of Gethsemane when the crowd came to arrest Jesus. That crowd was led by one of his friends who betrayed him. It was unfair, but this is what happened. Jesus was still speaking when a crowd arrived, led by Judas, one of the 12 disciples. He came up to Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said, "Judas, is it with a kiss that you betray the Son of Man?" When the disciples who were with Jesus saw what was going to happen, they asked, "Shall we use our swords, Lord?" And one of them struck the high priest's slave and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, "Enough of this." He touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and the elders who had come there to get him, "Did you have to come with swords and clubs as though I were an outlaw? I was with you in the temple every day, and you did not try to arrest me. But this is your hour to act, when the power of darkness rules." And there was this sense that darkness was coming over the story as Jesus was being led away in captivity. A bit more music, more of the story. by Judas, one of the 12 disciples. But after he's arrested, it got even worse as his apparent best friend also denied him. This was Peter. They arrested Jesus and took him away into the house of the high priest, and Peter followed at a distance. A fire had been lit in the centre of the courtyard, and Peter joined those who were sitting around it. When one of the servant girls saw him sitting there at the fire, she looked straight at him and said, "This man too was with Jesus." But Peter denied it. "Woman, I don't even know him." After a little while, a man noticed Peter and said, "You are one of them too." But Peter answered, "Man, I am not." And about an hour later, another man insisted strongly, "There isn't any doubt that this man was with Jesus, because he is also a Galilean." But Peter answered, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." At once, while he was still speaking, a cock crowed. The Lord turned round and looked straight at Peter, and Peter remembered that the Lord had said to him, "Before the cock crows tonight, you will say 3 times yet that you do not know me." Peter went out and wept bitterly. Let's have a bit more music before the next part of the story. So Jesus was alone and had been arrested. After he was arrested, he had a sham court to face and was sentenced to death. Let's hear about it. Pilate called together the chief priests, the leaders and the people, and said to them, "You brought this man to me and said that he was misleading the people. Now I have examined him here in your presence, and I have not found him guilty of any of the crimes that you accuse him of. Nor did Herod find him guilty, for he sent him back to us. There is nothing this man has done to deserve death. So I'll have him whipped and let him go." The whole crowd cried out, "Kill him! Set Barabbas free for us!" Barabbas had been put in prison for a riot that had taken place in the city and for murder. Pilate wanted to set Jesus free, so he appealed to the crowd again, but they shouted back, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them the third time, "But what crime has he committed? I cannot find anything he has done to deserve death. I will have him whipped and set him free." But they kept on shouting at the top of their voices that Jesus should be crucified, and finally their shouting succeeded. So Pilate passed a sentence on Jesus that they were asking for. He set free the man they wanted, the one who'd been put in prison for riot and murder, and he handed Jesus over for them to do as they wished. And so an innocent man, the Son of God, was sentenced to death. After that, there was only one outcome. The soldiers led Jesus away, and as they were going, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, who was coming into the city from the country. They seized him, put the cross on him, and made him carry it behind Jesus. 2 other men, both of them criminals, were also led out to be put to death with Jesus. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there and the 2 criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing." Above Jesus were written these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." The other one, however, rebuked him, saying, "Don't you fear God? You received the same sentence he did. Ours, however, is only right, because we're getting what we deserve for what we did. But he has done no wrong. And he said to Jesus, "Remember, Jesus, when you come as king." Jesus said to him, "I promise you that today you will be in paradise with me." A bit more music.
There is a green hill far away, without a city wall, where the dear Lord was crucified, who died to save us all. We may not know, we cannot tell, what pains he had to bear, but we believe it was for us he hung and suffered there. He died that we might be forgiven. He died to make us good, that we might go at last to heaven, saved by his precious blood. There was no other good enough to pay the price of sin. He only could unlock the gate of heaven and let us in. Oh, dearly, dearly has he loved, and we must love him too, and trust in his redeeming blood, and try his works to do.
So after the betrayal, false trials, fake accusations, the end of the road came. Jesus dies. It was about 12 o'clock when the sun stopped shining and darkness covered the whole country until 3 o'clock. And the curtain hanging in the temple was torn in two. Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Father, in your hands I place my spirit." He said this and died. Everyone thought this was the end of the road. The people of the time thought they got rid of him. The Sadducees, the Pharisees, saw this as the end of the troublemaker. The disciples saw it as the end of the adventure, the new life, the new hope. The people saw it as a path to safety. The troublemaker was gone. And he was, in the end, buried in the ground. And Luke tells us more about it. There was a man named Joseph from Arimathea, a town in Judea. He was a good and honourable man who was waiting for the coming of the kingdom of God. Although he was a member of the council, he had not agreed with their decision and action. He went into the presence of Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took the body down, wrapped it in a linen sheet, and placed it in a tomb which had been dug out of solid rock, which had never been used. It was Friday, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The woman who had followed Jesus came from Galilee, went with Joseph and saw the tomb and how Jesus' body was placed in it. Then they went back home and prepared the spices and perfumes for the body. So Jesus was dead. Jesus was in a tomb. Stone was rolled in front. They thought it was all over. They thought.
When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gains I count but loss, and pour content on all my pride. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the cross of Christ my God. All vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to His blood. See from His head, His hands, His feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did there such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? The whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my whole. Whatever your faith or none, I wish you peace.